All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the latest set of RBT exam practice questions, where we're going through this set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack and practice exams. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in your Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. You board your flight, which is expected to last 6 hours. As soon as you sit down, a baby starts to cry loudly. You take out your noise-canceling headphones and put them onto your ears, and then put on your favorite playlist. Putting on the noise-canceling headphones will likely lead to what relative to the noise? Now, we've all been in this situation where you're on a flight and there's a crying baby, people are making noise. Luckily, we have noise canceling headphones these days. So what the question is asking about is, when you put on the noise canceling headphones, what's going to happen relative to the noise? Because in a question like this, when we're talking consequences, reinforcement, punishment, the first thing you want to do is start to identify the antecedents, the behaviors, and the consequences. So what is the antecedent to putting on the noise canceling headphones? Well, the baby starts to cry. That is our antecedent. In response, you take out your headphones and put them on. So what the question is saying is, what's the consequence of that? What's the likely consequence of putting on noise canceling headphones when the baby starts to cry loudly? Well, if they're noise canceling, we're likely going to drown out the baby's crying. So what have we done? Well, we've removed something. We've removed a stimulus from the environment. And when you remove something, is that positive or negative? Well, that's negative. And so we can say for sure this is negative. We're putting on the noise canceling headphones. It's going to remove the baby's crying, the noise from our environment. Now, in the future, when we hear a baby start to cry and we have noise canceling headphones, what are we likely to do? Well, we're likely to put our noise canceling headphones on. So we're removing something, making it negative. And in the future, we are going to continue putting on these headphones. And now it doesn't say that for sure, but it wants us to make assumptions. And we always say we don't want to make assumptions, but in this particular case, you have to. So all that said, putting the noise canceling headphones on will likely lead to what relative to the noise? A, positive reinforcement. Now, we decided it will be reinforcing because when we hear the baby start to cry in the future, we're likely to put the noise canceling headphones on. However, what is the noise canceling headphones doing? It's removing the crying from our environment. So it's not going to be positive because we're removing something. What about B, positive punishment? Well, it's not positive, one, and two, if the noise canceling headphones are effective at removing the crying, that's not going to punish putting that behavior on, right? It's not going to punish the behavior of putting the headphones on. It's going to reinforce it. So if we look at C, negative reinforcement, this is what we're looking for. We put the headphones on, it removes the sound of the crying. We're more likely to put the headphones on in the future, reinforced. It's likely to lead to negative reinforcement. And of course, that's not D because it isn't punishment. And so you want to go through each consequence question like that as you're studying and really break it down and dive into it. The more you do that, the better and quicker you're going to get. And these questions are going to become very, very easy and straightforward for you. But you want to begin, what's the antecedent? What's the behavior? What's the consequence? And in this case, putting the noise canceling headphones will likely lead to negative reinforcement relative to the noise. We're going to remove the noise. In the future, we're likely to put on noise canceling headphones. You're shopping for a house and land on one you like. Following the inspection, you tell the seller that you want to buy the house, but you need them to repair the roof first. What are you establishing? So we want to look at ABA in terms of real life scenarios, right? And you're likely, if you're a behavior technician, to work in a clinic or a school or a home setting, working with kids. Now, for the exam and to get better at ABA in general, you want to start applying all these terms to your everyday life. So as you're going around your day-to-day life, your day-to-day business, start thinking in terms of ABA, right? Is this reinforcing? Is this punishing? Is this extinction? In this case, we're looking for a house and we have one we like. That's great. Now, after the inspection, you say to the seller, okay, I will buy the house, but you have to repair the roof first. Now think about that in context of let's say we're teaching somebody something, okay? Or we're using a token economy, right? You might say to the learner, I'll give you a token, but first I need you to answer 3 questions. And that's the thing we do all day, every day. This is a huge part of our job. What are we doing? What are we establishing when we say, first you need to do this, then I'll give you this? Or if you do this, then I'll give you this. What do we call those first, then, if then statements? A bribe. Now remember, a bribe is the opposite of a contingency. We don't operate on bribes. A lot of people want to make the claim that ABA bribes. We don't bribe. A bribe is when you provide the consequence before the behavior, and we never want to do that. In this situation, this should be like, well, I'm going to buy the house first, and then you've got to repair the roof. That's not what we said. We said first you need to repair the roof, and then I'll buy the house. A bribe would be, here's a token, now you answer 3 questions. It's the opposite of what we're really doing, which is establishing a contingency. A contingency is that if then statement, that first then statement. First you do this, then I'll do this. If you do this, then I'll do this. So in this case, first you repair the roof, then I'll buy the house. We are establishing a contingency. We're not establishing a punisher or a reinforcer. It's not what this question is about. We're not establishing this. We're not pairing anything. We're not doing any reinforcing or punishment assessments. None of that, right? All we're worried about here is the contingency that we're establishing. If you repair the roof, then I'll buy the house. First you repair the roof, then I'll buy the house. A 10-year-old female client wants to learn to apply her own makeup. Although her mom is hesitant, she agrees to allow a task analysis of just some basic makeup skills to be used under supervision. For the task analysis, how many steps should be included in the task chain? All right, we have a task analysis question asking about the task chain. What comes first? The task analysis. The task analysis breaks down the behavior into individual steps, and that's our task chain. In this case, we want to know how many steps should we include in the task chain. Now be careful here, okay? You've got a lot of descriptive information about the client. 10 years old, female, wants to make her own makeup. Mom says, well, we can use some basic skills under supervision. You can start to draw a lot of conclusions from that information, but is there any way to identify how many steps in the task chain this particular client needs without actually seeing or doing the task analysis? Absolutely not, right? We don't standardize any of our interventions. Every intervention is individualized. For this particular 10-year-old female client, she might be a pro at makeup, and we need just a few steps in the task chain. Or she might be very basically skilled in makeup with maybe low fine motor skills. And so we're going to need maybe a lot more steps, more complex steps. It's too hard to tell based on this information. So let's look at A, at least 8 steps given her age. Well, age doesn't really factor into this, right? Because once we do the task analysis, we're going to look at her skill level, her developmental level. What is she capable of doing? Not all 10-year-olds are made equal, just the facts. So we can't just say, well, her age, let's do 8 steps. What about B? No more than 10 steps to limit the response required. Well, we might need more than 10 steps. What if we need to break each step down into very basic components? That might be a possibility. What about C? Each task chain should be exactly 7 steps. Well, we just know that's false, right? All chains are made different. All chains require as many steps as it takes to get the person to learn how to do the chain. So we can't make assumptions about anything. In this case, how many steps should be included in the task chain? Well, we cannot determine given the information. The batteries in your remote control die and the remote no longer works. You download an app that lets you control your television from your home. Controlling your television with the app instead of the remote represents what? All right, we're looking for what controlling the television with the app represents. What other information do we have here? Well, we know your remote no longer works. So typically, you're going to use a remote, right? Because once your remote dies, you download an app that lets you control your television for your home, right? So you have a remote, batteries die, now you still need to control the television. So what do? You get an app. So what have you done here? Okay. Well, you've generalized something, right? Because the skill initially is using a remote for your television. Now you download the app. Now you can use the app for your television. So are we looking at response generalization, stimulus generalization, maintenance, or overgeneralization? Well, you can immediately eliminate maintenance because maintenance implies we've taught the skill and now we're no longer teaching the skill, but it's maintaining. There's no indication we taught the skill. Okay, and maintenance has to have that specific information where we've previously taught the skill and are no longer teaching it. There's nothing in the question that's saying that. So maintenance is probably not our best answer. What about D, overgeneralization? Well, overgeneralization implies the response is occurring at the wrong time or too much. And that's not the case here. The response is occurring at the right time. However, the response is now occurring not only in the presence of the remote, but also the app. So when a response occurs in the presence of multiple stimuli, what do we call that? Well, we call that stimulus generalization. We're generalizing a response across multiple stimuli. Response generalization is kind of the opposite, right? We have a single stimulus and then a bunch of different responses. The response here is controlling the TV, and we're able to control the TV with both a remote and an app. So controlling your television with the app instead of the remote represents stimulus generalization. You are generalizing controlling the TV or working the TV with different stimuli. Why is topography worse than function for determining how to respond to behavior? Now we've asked similar questions. Very important that we drill home, internalize the idea that function is the most important thing when evaluating behavior. And why? Well, function tells us why behavior happens. What's maintaining the behavior? Why does the behavior occur? Four functions: escape, tangible, automatic, and attention. So those are the four reasons behavior occurs. Now, what is topography? Well, topography is how a behavior looks. It's the form. And if you ever heard the phrase form over function, we don't want to pick form over function here, right? How the behavior looks is not as important as the function. And why is that? Well, if you think about behavior, a behavior can look a certain way and function in more than one way, right? So if I hold up my hand, I might ask for a high five. I might be telling you to stop. I might be asking to answer a question. That behavior, holding up the hand, looks the same. It functions three different ways. So topography is not as good as function for determining how to respond to behavior because function is going to tell you what's maintaining that behavior, what's causing it. So A, two or more behaviors can share topographies, but happen for different reasons. Exactly, that's what we just discussed, right? Behaviors can look the same and they can happen for very different reasons. What about B? The topography is never important when responding to behavior. Well, that's not true. The topography is going to help us identify the behavior that we're looking for, right? It's just not going to necessarily say why that behavior is happening. C, topography and function are of equal importance when responding to behavior. That's incorrect. Function is always the most important thing to determine. And then D, topography is more important when responding to behavior. It's just not true, right? The thing is, two or more behaviors can look the same, have the same form, the same topography, but they can happen for very different reasons. That's why when a new behavior occurs and you're a technician in the field, first things first is, well, what's the function? Why is it occurring? Do they want attention? Are they trying to escape? Are they trying to gain something? Is it automatic? It's always where you want to start. And then we can get topography and magnitude. After several trials of saying clap your hands and delivering praise for clapping hands, Jason now consistently claps his hand when told, clap your hands. Clap your hands now functions as a what? All right, so we're looking at clap your hands. Relative to what? Well, let's look, right? So several trials, so we're running, let's say DTT, of saying clap your hands, delivering praise. So we're clearly trying to establish clap your hands as an instruction to clap hands, right? Because when Jason claps his hands in the presence of clap your hands, we praise him. And so we're trying to form a discriminative stimulus, an SD for clap your hands, right? We're trying to create that. And so now that Jason consistently claps his hands when told clap your hands, it shows us we've been effective. So clap your hands functions as A, a discriminative stimulus. Yes, that's how we create discriminative stimulus, or B, SDs, right? You give an instruction or a command or an antecedent, and then if the response occurs following the antecedent, and we reinforce, and that antecedent starts to become an SD. That's how we create SDs. So clap your hands functions as both a discriminative stimulus and an SD because those are the same thing. It's not a stimulus delta. A stimulus delta signals that reinforcement is not available. And in this case, clap your hands is now signaling to Jason that if he claps his hands, praise is available. So that's getting more technical into the SDs and discriminative stimuli, but understand that the whole idea of the SD is that it signals to the learner that reinforcement or a consequence is available for engaging in a response. So clapping hands now functions as both a discriminative stimulus and an SD because those are the same thing. Excellent. Thanks for watching. Shorter video today, but as always, we'll be back next week, Monday and Wednesday, with our RBT exam practice series and our practice question series. Make sure you subscribe to get all of our updates. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack practice exams. Work hard, study hard, and we will see you soon.